Hello and welcome to AXSChat. I'm really delighted to welcome back to the show Mike Gifford. Mike's a regular on the Twitter chats with us. Yes, Twitter, not X, or should we call it Twix? And Mike is a senior strategist at Civic Actions. Third time on the show, Mike. You're one of a vanishingly small number of people that have stuck with us over the best part of a decade and keep coming back for more. So welcome back. I know you're in lovely south of France at the moment, working extremely remotely, but we've got a great topic today because you were recently, bridging the sustainability and accessibility topics at a conference, and we thought, well, this is something we want to talk about. So tell us a little more, and of course, tell us a bit for those that don't have long memories. About what Civic Actions is and your role there.
Thank you. I often rush right into the topic and forget about my company and where I've come from. So happy to go off and to have that reminder. I used to own a business called Open Concept for 21 years, and I was acquired by Civic Actions and have been working focused on accessibility since that time. Civic Actions does a lot of work with the federal government, and accessibility in the U.S. is really quite important, and governments around the world understand how important accessibility is, but very few of them really have good approaches to address those. And so trying to go off and build in better practices for Civic Actions and our clients, and help to, because Civic Actions works with open source software, trying to share and collaborate as much as I can with the platform that I have with Civic Actions. So I went to a conference in Barcelona to speak. It was at a Green Digital Sustainability, Green Digital Accessibility Conference, and it was organized by Green Sense and a number of other people within a university in Barcelona. And it was an excellent opportunity for people to talk about sustainability and accessibility in various different aspects of it. The talk I wanted to bring was looking at policy aspects and how policy, because climate change is a really critical issue, and we have a limited amount of time to go off and act on it. Accessibility is also a critical issue, but there's not the time pressure because humans can continue to go off and neglect humans, and it will have a huge impact on the humans, but not the rest of the planet. Unlike sustainability, where if we have negative sustainability practices, it will have a negative impact on everyone, not just humans, but all species on this planet. So I wanted to go off and to just look at what are the things that we can learn from accessibility. What are the lessons that have been taken, or that should be taken from accessibility and applied to sustainability? How do we bring that forward? And I think there's a lot of similarities between sustainability and accessibility, in terms of the rigor, in terms of the like an element. Often accessibility and sustainability are things that are left at the end. Like if you are aware of them as issues, you're going to deal with them after the project is done, if there's sufficient budget at the end of the project. Right? You're not necessarily going to go off and build that in, but from accessibility, we definitely know that there's a need to try and fix things as early as possible.
Great. So I know Deborah's got a question, but I just want to cause a bit of trouble first, and that is, I want to say, actually, accessibility is part of sustainability, especially when you start thinking about it in the framework of ESG, right?
Right.
So, right, and certainly when in my day job we're looking at sustainability and ESG, and in European companies, there's all of the the CSRD stuff, the CSR directive and the reporting directive. It's not just about the E of ESG, which is the environmental impact and the energy impact and so on, that people have traditionally thought of as being sustainability. There's also the social sustainability and so on.
Right.
So sorry to be a troublemaker, but I think that actually, they're part of each other, they're intertwined, but the green element is an element, it's the E element, and the resource usage and all of that kind of stuff. And I think we can learn from each other. So so I think that it's what can years of accessibility practice teach green practitioners, and what can the urgency and the attention and the money of the energy reduction and decarbonisation teach the accessibility industry, and how can we create some kind of symbiosis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot to learn from each other, and they're different. They're very related issues, but there's different groups of people that are working on them and that are passionate about it, and you're going to find less people who are like their sustainability is often tied to performance, and so you've got sort of more technical people in some ways involved on that front, accessibility is often tied to to rights and civil rights and civil rights issues, and again that's less of an issue for sustainability. Although of course, if we make our planet inhospitable, then that's certainly a big human rights issue.
Right. What could go wrong? First of all, I think we should promote Neil to, if y'all didn't notice this title, I think he should be the chief troublemaker, but just saying, but that's okay. We'll keep you demoted, Neil. But this is really a powerful conversation. And Mike, congratulations for being on the show 3 times, because we haven't had very many guests on 3 times, and that's how brilliant we think you are. So, but I know that Neil, thank you for promoting yourself, Neil, there in the job title. But I know that Neil was talking about, he was one of the first, at least that I heard, talking about this. He was using, and I forget who coined the term, and he'll tell us in a minute, but talking about pollution and accessibility, which I remember when he started talking about that, I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. And then I know others have been talking about this topic. Mike, you've been talking about this for a long time. I know Nabil Eid, Jim Tobias, thank you. He gave me a cue in the background. Thank you for being my brain. Yeah, Jim Tobias talked about it a little bit, and then Neil really ran with it. I should say, rest in peace, Jim Tobias. We were very sad to lose him, like so many other great ones. But I know Nabil Eid, who works with me, and he lives in Syria. He really talks about this and how it is really impacting the people, especially people, not just people that are disenfranchised, like our community, people with disabilities, but people that are in really serious situations, like, once again, say people that live in Syria or maybe in the Ukraine, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's sometimes chilling to me to talk to Nabil, who lives in Syria, and to just hear some of the things him and his family have lived through. His house has been bombed. Partially bombed 8 times.
Wow.
They right now today live on 30 minutes of electricity. It's wintertime in Syria, folks. Right. Just saying, there are things that these people are living with that are just, we do not understand. So I see all these wonderful conversations about we got to protect the planet. I can't imagine why we're not protecting the planet we're living on. But I'm also getting a little bit annoyed of words like ESG and CSR and things like that, because I don't understand. Even if you're a big, successful corporation, you still live on the planet too, right? Yeah. So you still you have humans running your. So I just think we are all often talking about these problems in a very short-sighted way that just doesn't really address the urgencies. And so I know artificial intelligence now has stepped into these conversations, has been for a while, and we're looking at these different lenses as well. But what I wonder, Mike, and I'm sure you or some of our chief troublemaker or innovation evangelist here can answer these big questions for me. But what I'm wondering is, are we focused on the wrong things right out of the gate? Because, okay, cool. Well, Atos, you better follow your ESG, CSR. Whenever, I think it's really should be applied in a much different way, and that we all have some really serious issues here. Could we please get together and really figure out how to make sure we protect our planet, we protect humans, fragile humans, we make sure technology supports what it just seems like everything is backwards. And so I just wanted to say thank you all for taking these topics on. But at the same time, I want to keep saying that I don't know what's going to happen in the accessibility field, but I do not believe that the direction that some of the things that are happening right now, big companies gobbling up other companies, I do not know if at the end of the day, this is really going to support what we're trying to do here, which is making sure that all humans have access to technology so that we can live our best lives. So I just, that's something I'm very concerned about right now as we look at what's happening with AI and how AI is going to change the job market. Mm-hmm. Right? Is this an opportunity now to step up and say, well, could we help our planet and help the people and humanity? So very important conversations, but I still don't think that, I don't know. I think we have to have more of the conversations that I just mentioned as well. And I will tell all of the corporate brands out there, all of you leaders out there, if you're not paying attention to what's happening in the world right now, and you're not really wanting to make a difference and really be part of the solution, please will you get out of our way? Anyway.
It is definitely a real challenge, and I think part of it is that we've somehow convinced ourselves that our own story about success as a society is independent of nature, that we can create an economy which is somehow a part of the world that we live in, and separate and distinct from, and that we can create rules that are clear, above and beyond that of nature, and separating ourselves from it, and we can't. I also, when you were talking, was thinking about another one of the presentations at this conference, and that talking about emergency issues, and how so often when you're dealing with climate change, or for that matter conflicts of war or other sort of emergencies, the information is not accessible. It's an afterthought. Oops. And so there's people who are so often forgotten in the process of well, is there an earthquake? Is there a flood? How do you respond to people? And if you aren't building your systems to assume that you're reaching out to people with disabilities, you miss so many people, and especially we know that during crises, so many more people will have at least temporary disabilities, if not permanent disabilities, right? Whether it's broken arms, or whether it's somehow you've lost an arm or a leg, or eyesight. There's so much that happens in these traumatic times, and yet again we don't, as humans, we don't want to think about those sort of opportunities. We tend to think about how we are right now and the abilities that we have at the moment, and not think ahead to what we're going to be facing in, whether it's tomorrow, 5 years, or 10 years. And aging is a huge one, right? Where we, our abilities are decreasing over time, and we need to be able to be aware of that our abilities today are not going to be the same as they are in the future. And so how do we grapple that reality that's not part of the story we tell ourselves? Yeah.
Good. Excellent points. Go ahead, Antonio.
No, and I think it's we have an ongoing war in Ukraine with a large number of young people who by reason of the what is happening in the war end up in the hospital, because they become disabled as part of the consequences of being fighting in the front. The same is happening in the issue with Israel and Palestine. Mm-hmm. So and those people are hopefully one day, when we are able to leave the war behind us and we are in times of peace, those people, they need to continue with their lives. They need to access to services. They need to have jobs. They need to live in a building that is accessible and at the same time sustainable. So the two things are within the mix. And sometimes something that I sometimes came across is when I talk with people that work in the tech sector, they tend to say, well, sustainability is not up to me. I'm a developer. Well, stop it. Your code should be green. My code needs to be green. What do you mean by that? Maybe when you're writing a piece of code, you need to find ways for that code to use less energy in the systems where it's going to be used. Well, I'm not sure about it. And the same happened when we talk about people in the sustainability area.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to look at, think more about people with disabilities. Oh, do I? I'm just worrying about the environment. So sometimes we came across this kind of conversations where people really are really focused in their area, and they don't see the extra, or they don't see the other, or sometimes the consequences of those who are in the areas of exclusion, because they are so obsessed with their focus area. So I think we need to somehow shift a little bit and focus more on the human side. And when we talk about the human, we're not talking about people who live in wealthy countries. We are people live in marginalized areas.
I was listening to a podcast from, I was at the SUX, the Sustainability Usability podcast, and there's a woman there from Lego, I think, who was talking about moving from human-centered design to planetary-centered design. And again, not thinking about you're not excluding the human, but just saying that we need to be thinking bigger about the processes. So if you're buying a product that is if you say supporting fossil fuels, and you're building a website for a fossil fuel, like for a big Shell or Exxon, one of these giant companies, if you have a super efficient, super low super sustainable website, that is still going to be helping to go off and increase the more consumption of oil and gas. So how do we try and think about not just the work we're doing, but what the end product is? And again, our societies focus us down into these really small niche areas where we often don't see what those links are between the different disciplines.
So I think the comment about the energy companies was really interesting, and obviously, and also the sort of overlaps. So a few things, where we've done some work and we've got some experience. So we worked a while back. We've gone through multiple rebrands. So at one point we rebranded and we did a dark mode rebrand, and we did some research on that, and it reduced energy consumption because less pixels were being used and so on and so forth. But we also improved the accessibility because we looked at the color contrast and so on. But beyond that, you can also look at efficiency in terms of, if you write green code, it's gonna load quicker. You're gonna have that creates a better user experience. It reduces resource consumption. It also hopefully conformant code should also be more accessible code. All of these kind of things. So you can start bringing them together, and you can have these multiple wins. But it was really interesting to see that COP28, hosted by an oil-producing nation, was still the first COP conference where there was an agreement, albeit less than we'd like, to phase out fossil fuels. So I think that you have to take those kind of really big holistic decisions, and sometimes those holistic decisions that consider all of the different impact analyses of different things don't necessarily appear at first glance intuitive or right.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a challenge for people when you start looking at these things in a sort of systems thinking way for them to understand it, because the reason we end up with lots of things that are not going so well is because people want simple solutions, and simple solutions don't generally work. They're simple because it's nice, but that's how we end up with extremism, because people are drawn to the simple solutions because things are broken. But when those simple solutions don't fix them, they usually make them worse. So we're going to have to go through a sort of cultural shift in sort of long-termism and rounded decision-making, which I think is going to really be quite a challenge for not just the business community, but for society to really understand that we need to think about these things differently.
Yeah, and it's difficult for politics as well, because again, we want to have the simple solutions. We want to have, some policy, some politician coming in to say, yes, I have the answers and I will solve things. But getting back to the code, and I did want to raise that the Green Software Foundation is doing some really interesting work on establishing a framework for improving green digital software. There's also the Green Web Foundation that's doing some very interesting stuff. There's now a web sustainability guideline that's coming out of a community group of the WC3, and this actually also involves a bunch of other issues that are much bigger than just sustainability. We have tried to go off and write a set of guidelines that is more holistic and is structured to actually look at very much to look at accessibility as well as other human rights issues within that web sustainability guideline framework. Having a sense of like, what is the purpose of this particular digital product? But both accessibility and sustainability, I think if we can try and bring it back into a sense of quality. How do we define quality? And if quality work is not just it should include elements of accessibility and also sustainability by default.
Fully agree. I think I've been trying to break Deborah into tackling. But,
right. So
I
easy.
I absolutely think we need to engage, and we need to get people coming together on this, and the politics is going to be exceptionally challenging in 2024 because everybody's into, we're in that point in the electoral cycle in over, I think it's 70 countries worldwide.
Wow.
Right, so there is going to be huge change and huge instability, and no one's going to be in it for the long term right now, because they're all looking at what sounds like a simple and alluring solution to the electorate. So one can only hope that at the end of that process that we get some kind of outcome where people are prepared to do that, and there's no guarantee on some of that stuff.
One thing that I don't know if that's happening, and so maybe it is, and I'm just not aware of it. But it feels to me like a lot of the players in the accessibility industry are not paying attention to what's happening, and it's just business as usual, the way we've always been doing it. Often, I'm going to speak from the lens of my beautiful small country, the United States. It feels like a lot of the accessibility providers in my beautiful country, it's just business as usual, the way we've always done things. And that is confusing me a little bit, because we do have something that just popped up called AI. So I don't understand why we're acting like it's just the same, because it's not. AI actually has great potential to solve some of these really big accessibility issues. But at the same time, we shouldn't be talking about any new technologies or anything and not talk about how we're not fully included the humans. And love the term planet-centered design. I love the comments that it's to make sure that humans and non-humans have a voice.
Right.
Non-humans. What does non-humans mean? Right. Okay. Wow. Are we talking AI? Are we talking dogs? So are we talking bugs? Are we talking? Yeah. So. Yeah. But I don't hear these conversations. I'm actually often not going to traditional accessibility conferences anymore, because I just want to start yelling and saying, what are y'all doing? Do y'all see what's happening to her? Anyway, so nobody wants Deborah to lose it, so, but I'm serious. Am I missing it? But why are we not, as mainstream accessibility, not more? Why do you have to go to a conference in Barcelona that's addressing it that we haven't heard of? And thank goodness I know about the conference now, but why aren't we taking this on more as an accessibility industry? I would ask you three experts about.
It's definitely so much more of a focus in in Europe, where I am now, there's so much more of a focus around sustainability, and they've made some huge jumps on accessibility in Europe, and with the European Accessibility Act and the Web Accessibility Directive. So those are definitely great things that are pushing both Europe and in fact the UK forward. But it's I think that in terms of the accessibility industry, we have to follow the money, and the money is in developing reports. It's in providing solutions in brackets. It's not really in fixing the problems upstream. When I talked historically, it was like looking at Drupal and open source. And it's like, well, here's a solution that's really very accessible that governments should be investing in, because if we solve these problems centrally that are complicated, difficult problems, then everyone can benefit, and we can invest in fixing the problem once, and everyone can benefit from those results.
Everyone, Mike, but how do I sell my company for $250 billion? What? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Gotta follow the money. Exactly.
It just makes me sad sometimes. It just makes me sad.
Never. So let me just two notes. We have seen a lot of developments in an area. No, we're talking about subtitles. No. Mm-hmm. That 5 years ago it was really hard to get them right. And now they have improved greatly. So that's a sector. Now there's some recent posts about generative AI and accessibility that things are not still there. There are a few things that is not we are not able to do yet. Mm-hmm. But there are prospects that they might improve, and that developments will bring them to a higher level and a higher standard. Okay,
right.
So with all these developments, and following what happened in the space of subtitles, how they develop so fast in a short period of time. Right. What is actually the role of companies that are actually only focused on accessibility? What is their space? Considering that suddenly AI just jumps out of the can, and suddenly a lot of people who are not really working in the space of accessibility can do a lot more with the AI that they couldn't do before. Or what is the challenge? Where is the disruption there?
I think that AI has a lot of potential. It is both it's an amplification, right? So it will amplify both the good and the bad, and is based on most generative AI is based on looking on what has happened historically. So it's going to be learning from code that is bad because it is not written for sustainability and not written for accessibility, and be propelling that forward. Now it could be improved upon, and where you're waiting the learning model to go off and embrace accessibility. And there's some people like Joe Devon who are trying to do that, who are trying to go off and build good models around accessibility to try and support that, which is great. But I also think that we, in some ways, need to go off and look for what are machines good for and what are humans good for. And we're never going to solve all the problems with AI. We're still going to need to go off and have people who understand how the machines are supposed to, what the tool is supposed to do, and what the context it's supposed to be doing it within. So having more engagement with people with lived experience with disabilities is going to be very important. Having more manual testing, having more quality around that, all that I think is going to be really quite useful. But on the sustainability topic, it's also quite useful to go off and note that AI is going to have a very big environmental impact as well. Mm-hmm. So all of these data centers, the AI may be in the cloud, but the impact is very much physical, and it has a huge impact on the planet. And if we're using AI to go and to generate alt text, that's taking resources, and it may be more efficient to go off and use AI to do that. But if it's producing low quality alt text, then it probably isn't. It probably is better to go off and train people to go off and to use their abilities to go off and write better. But we're in a difficult time because things are changing very quickly, and I think that there's pros and cons to all of this.
Yeah, I think that it's that nuance that most people don't really get yet, and the energy and resource consumption of AI is not visible to the end user, and therefore they don't really understand the impact that some of their actions might have, because again, these are externalities, these are negative externalities of an IT product that can possibly help happen. So I know we need to close shortly, but I think on a positive note, we do know that we can change technology stacks. So the resource consumption of blockchain initially was enormous, but changing it, the configuration for, and the way that we dealt with proofs reduced the energy consumption. And I think the same thing can happen with AI models as well. So I think that can help. That we need to find that appropriate balance between the two, proof of work and proof of stake. You're right, Mike. And then we can look at how we can integrate some of that ability to do stuff fast and to scale and everything else from AI with the human in the loop. So I need to thank Amazon and MyClearText for keeping it on air and keeping it captioned. Real humans doing the job here. And I really look forward to the chat on Twix shortly.
And Neil, real quick before we go, Mike, will you just tell the audience how to contact with you?
So I'm available on most social media as M Gifford. That's MGIFFORD. I can also be reached at mike.gifford@civicactions.com if people have questions from this. But I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on most places, so you can find me wherever you like.
And you can stalk him by the geographical metadata on
all my Flickr pictures.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.